Daniel knelt, his voice unsteady. Thank you, buddy. You brought me everything I ever wanted. The vows were simple, but filled with truth. Emily promised love not only in strength, but in weakness. Daniel promised to choose her, every broken piece, every scar, every tomorrow. And when they kissed, the garden erupted with joy. Ethan squeezed between them, arms out. Group hug. He laughed, and the guests joined in the laughter, their hearts full. That night, barefoot in the grass beneath the string lights, Emily whispered, "This doesn't feel real." Daniel wrapped her close. "It's real, and it's forever." Hand in hand, they walked with Ethan up the steps of their home, the golden lights spilling through the doorway. Not perfect, but whole. What began in heartbreak had grown into healing. From a crowded airport to a quiet wedding garden, from fear to forever, Emily, Daniel, and Ethan had found not just love, but a family. Because sometimes fate doesn't give you what you want when you want it. Sometimes it saves the best for last. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories, where every tale reminds you that love always finds a way. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story. Her hands trembled as she set the mug down, the ceramic clinking against the table. Daniel's words still hung in the air, raw and unguarded. "You don't have to answer me," he said softly, almost pleading. But Emily's voice came, low and uneven. "Daniel, I'm not the girl you used to know. I don't laugh the same way anymore. I don't dream the same way. I'm a mother. I've been lied to, abandoned, hurt. And when I look at you, it scares me, because I feel safe again. And I don't know if I can trust that, or myself." She stood before he could reply, the mug cradled in her hands like a shield, and walked slowly down the hallway toward the guest room. Daniel stayed frozen at the table, his chest tight with both hope and heartbreak. The days that followed moved with a strange rhythm, almost like a song neither of them had chosen, but both recognized. Daniel never pressed. He didn't corner her with questions or try to erase her walls. He just showed up, helping Ethan with reading, pouring Emily tea on nights she looked too tired to stand, giving her silence when she needed it, laughter when she didn't know she did. And piece by piece, Emily felt something shift. She smiled again. She laughed, hesitant at first, then louder, freer. She cooked alongside Daniel. She watched Ethan beam as Daniel let him parade through the house in one of his ties, calling himself a boss like Mr. Hayes. She saw how Ethan's hand slipped into Daniel's without hesitation, how Daniel answered every one of Ethan's endless questions like they were treasures. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. For the first time in years, Emily allowed herself to breathe, to hope. One late afternoon, the autumn light glowing gold across Daniel's backyard, she pinned Ethan's tiny socks to a line Daniel had built for her. The breeze danced against her hair, and for the first time in forever, she pictured a future that wasn't weighed down by fear. Inside, laughter erupted. She peeked through the window and saw Daniel and Ethan building a blanket fort in the living room, their heads bent close together, their smiles wide. Emily lifted her phone, ready to take a picture, when the doorbell rang. Still smiling, she opened the door. The smile vanished. On her porch stood a man in a faded jacket, a baseball cap pulled low. His eyes, cold, familiar, unwelcome, met hers. "Hi, Em," he said quietly. Her breath caught. "Derek." He looked older, thinner, but his smirk was the same. He shifted on his feet, glancing past her shoulder. "I've been thinking about you. About the boy." Emily's grip tightened on the doorframe. "What are you doing here? I know I wasn't there before, but I've changed. I've got work now. I want to see my son." Her jaw tightened. "You don't get to walk in after all this time and ask to play father." "I'm not here to fight," Derek said smoothly. "I just want a chance. Please." From behind her, Daniel's voice carried down the hall, calling Ethan for dinner. Derek's gaze flickered at the sound, but Emily stepped out quickly, shutting the door behind her. "You don't get to be part of his life," she said, her voice shaking. Derek leaned closer, his tone sharpening. "He's mine too, and sooner or later, he'll know. You can't keep him from me forever." Emily's stomach churned. Memories crashed back, his empty promises, his disappearances, his cruelty. She whispered through clenched teeth, "I raised him alone. He doesn't know you. He doesn't need you." He tilted his head, voice soft again, manipulative. "Think about it, Em. I'm not asking for much. Just a chance. And then, as quickly as he came, he turned and walked down the quiet street, leaving Emily frozen on the porch, her heart hammering. Inside, Daniel and Ethan's laughter spilled through the walls. But Emily couldn't smile. Darkness had found her again. The first message came 2 nights later. She was folding laundry when her phone buzzed. "You owe me a second chance. If you don't want to lose your son, bring me 100 grand fast." Her blood went cold. Another message flashed immediately. "Get it from your CEO. He won't even notice it's gone." Her hands shook as she deleted the texts, but they kept coming. "Every day? You can't hide behind him. I'll take you to court. I'll prove you kept Ethan from me. Let's see how long you keep custody." Emily's stomach twisted every time her phone lit up. She smiled for Ethan, for Daniel, but inside, she was unraveling. She met Derek once in a diner, hoping to end it. He leaned across the table, eyes sharp. "What happens when Daniel finds out about me? About the mess you left behind? You think he'll still want you?" Emily whispered, "Steady, I'm not giving you money. You don't get to threaten me." Derek's smirk hardened. "You'll regret this. Courts don't care how many sandwiches you packed or nights you stayed up. They'll see you for what you are, unfit. Get me the money, or lose him." That night, Emily stood over Ethan's bed, brushing his hair back as he slept. Snow had begun to fall outside, blanketing the world in silence. She sat at the kitchen table with a piece of paper before her, her tears staining the ink. "Daniel, I'm sorry. Don't come looking for us. It's safer this way. Thank you for everything." She left the note on the counter, packed one small bag, lifted Ethan in her arms, and slipped out into the freezing night. Daniel woke before dawn to an eerie stillness. The guest room was empty. Ethan's stuffed rabbit was gone. Then he saw the note. His chest ached as he read the words. And then he ran. Through snow-choked streets, he searched. Shelters, diners, stations. His calls went unanswered. By sunrise, his hands were raw on the steering wheel, his voice hoarse from saying her name into the void. At last, at the edge of town, he found her. Emily sat hunched on a bench in the bus terminal, Ethan cradled against her chest beneath a thin blanket. Daniel's breath caught. He dropped to his knees in front of her. Her face crumpled. "I didn't know what else to do." He threatened to take Ethan. He wanted money. "I couldn't drag you into it." Daniel reached for her hand, his voice fierce. "You were never dragging me. I want all of it. Your past, your pain, your son. I want you. I love you." Tears broke free from her eyes. "I was so scared." Daniel pressed his forehead to hers. "No one is taking Ethan. No one is taking you. Not while I'm here." That same day, Daniel put lawyers into motion. Derek's messages, his threats, his history, all gathered, all filed. Restraining orders, custody protections, criminal charges. Derek would never hold power over her again. That night, Ethan slept soundly in his bed, safe. Emily leaned into Daniel's side on the couch, her voice a whisper. "I'm still scared." "So am I," he murmured. "But I'm not going anywhere." And for the first time, she believed him. 1 year later, sunlight streamed through a garden lined with white blooms and golden lights. A small crowd gathered beneath the trees as soft music played. At the top of the aisle, Ethan stood proudly in his little gray suit, holding Emily's hand. In the other, he clutched a bouquet of white peonies. "Ready, Mom?" he whispered. Emily smiled through her tears. "Ready." They walked together, step by step, toward Daniel. His eyes met hers, and the world seemed to still. At the altar, Ethan grinned. "Here she is, Dad." "Emily." She froze, the tray of steaming coffee cups rattling in her hands. The sound of his voice was like a door she had locked years ago, suddenly thrown wide open. Slowly, she turned. And there he was, Daniel Hayes. Not the boy she remembered from campus, but a man in a tailored suit, every inch of him polished, powerful. Her chest tightened. "I think you have the wrong person," she muttered, retreating behind the counter of the small airport cafe. But his eyes didn't waver. "No," Daniel said softly, almost to himself. "I could never forget you." She busied herself with wiping down the counter, willing her hands to stop trembling. Maybe if she ignored him, he would board his flight and disappear, just like he had 10 years ago. Yet fate had other plans. An elderly passenger stumbled near the boarding gate, his bag spilling open. Without hesitation, Emily rushed over, kneeling to gather the man's scattered belongings. She handed them back with a kind smile. And when she looked up, Daniel was watching her. Their eyes locked, and for a moment the noise of the terminal fell away. He looked at her as though no time had passed, as though the weight of a decade hadn't carved scars into both of their lives. When his voice came again, it was barely above a whisper. Emily Carter. Her throat tightened. She stood quickly and walked back to the cafe. But minutes later, Daniel was there, leaning across the counter. Can we talk? Just a few minutes. She hesitated, then exhaled. I'm on break in 10. They sat at a corner table near the window. Emily kept her gaze fixed on her lukewarm coffee, while Daniel studied her face with an intensity that made her shift in her seat. You look different, he said carefully. Stronger. It's been 10 years, she replied flatly. Tell me, he urged. How have you been? She swallowed. I have a son. Ethan. He's 5. It's just the two of us. Daniel's brows lifted. You're a mom. Yes. Her tone was steady, without apology. I work mornings here. Nights cleaning offices. It's not much, but it's enough. There was no bitterness in her voice, only quiet resolve. Daniel nodded, watching as she glanced toward another older traveler struggling with a bag. Emily rose immediately, helped the man, and even offered part of her sandwich before returning. You haven't changed, Daniel said. You still give more than you have. Emily gave a tired smile. I don't know how else to be. Moments later, his phone buzzed with the boarding call. He stood reluctantly. Let me give you my card. Just in case. She took it without a word. Days later, her landlord stood at her apartment door, arms crossed. You're behind again. Tomorrow. That's it. Emily pleaded, but the door slammed shut. She sank to the floor, tears burning her eyes. Ethan looked up from his coloring book, his small voice breaking the silence. It's okay, Mommy. That night, her phone lit up. Daniel Hayes, I've been thinking about you and Ethan. Are you okay? She stared at the message, her pride warring with desperation. By morning, she and Ethan stood outside with one suitcase and his stuffed rabbit. A sleek black SUV pulled up. Daniel stepped out, his gaze falling on the bags, the panic in her eyes, the child gripping her hand. Come with me, he said simply. Just until you figure things out. Not charity. Just help. Emily's jaw tightened. She looked at Ethan, then down at the cracked sidewalk. Finally, she nodded. Just for a few days. Daniel smiled faintly. That's all I'm asking. His home was nothing like her world. Wide windows, sunlight spilling into rooms that felt too big, too clean. She moved carefully, as though she might be told to leave any moment. But by dawn, she was in the kitchen, cooking eggs and toast like it was her own place. Daniel came downstairs, surprised. You didn't have to. It's habit, she said quickly. Ethan needs breakfast first thing. He only smiled. It smells better than anything I've made in years. Days passed. Daniel watched her rhythm. The patience she showed Ethan as she taught him to write his name. The way she laughed at his stick figure drawings as if they were masterpieces. The exhaustion she tried to hide when she thought no one noticed. Ethan followed Daniel everywhere, peppering him with questions. Do you really run a whole company? Can I be a CEO too, even if I sleep with a dinosaur? Daniel knelt down, answering every question like it mattered more than board meetings and billion-dollar deals. Quietly, Daniel made changes around the house. A shelf of children's books appeared in the guest room. A lamp with soft light. Almond milk in the fridge. Emily noticed everything, her chest tightening each time, though he never mentioned it. One night, Ethan's fever spiked. Panic gripped Emily as she pressed cool cloths to his forehead. Her hands shook. Her lips whispered prayers. Daniel was at her side instantly. He called the doctor, sat with them through the night, whispering calm reassurances. We'll take care of him. Together. That word, together, wrapped around her like safety she hadn't felt in years. By dawn, Ethan's fever broke. Exhausted, Emily looked at Daniel through swollen eyes. Thank you for being here. Something shifted in his gaze. It wasn't pity. It wasn't obligation. It was the weight of 10 years crashing back with clarity. The following weekend, he suggested a picnic. Ethan's excitement left Emily little room to refuse. They drove to a quiet park, leaves turning gold around them. On the blanket, Ethan pulled out a drawing, 3 stick figures holding hands, under a bright sun. Above them, Mommy, me, and my CEO dad. Emily's cheeks flushed as she took it quickly. He just likes the idea of you being important, she murmured. But she didn't throw it away. She folded it neatly, slipped it into her bag. That night, after Ethan was asleep, Daniel found her at the kitchen table, tea cooling in her hands. He sat across from her, his voice low. I need to tell you something. She looked up slowly. I've had relationships. Some lasted, some didn't. But none of them ever felt real. Not like us. Since the day I left, I haven't truly loved anyone else. Not like I loved you. Emily's breath caught. Her fingers tightened around the mug. For the first time in years, she didn't know if she wanted to run or finally stay.